politicians of the United Kingdom are instigating hatred and racism and making it look like the immigrants are not adding anything to the system, but are rather taking it from the system.
67% of the British public think immigration is too high. The British public is right. There are now around 11 million foreign-born people in the UK, and for too long, immigration numbers have been far too high. Immigration at this level has serious consequences. 48% of social housing in London has a head of household not born in the UK. In the last 10 years, migration has absorbed around about 50% of new housing supply. And some nationalities are exceptionally dependent on social housing. For example, 72% of Somalis live in social housing, compared to only 16% of the population more generally. Well, I'll talk a bit in a moment about the record of the last government, but I've already said that for decades, under successive governments, including the last one, but previous ones as well, immigration has been far, far too high. That is a failure by governments over a period of decades, and it is now time to listen to the British people and put this right. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, high levels of immigration, especially when there is not proper integration, undermines social cohesion. And a nation-state, a society, can't function when you have social fractures. It can't function properly. The nation can't function properly. Society can't function properly when you have fractures in social cohesion. I will in a minute. And in advancing the case that we do have a problem with social cohesion and a lack of integration, I will present some evidence. It's not an assertion. I'll present some evidence in support of that. And let me start with this. The most recent census revealed that a million of our fellow citizens don't speak English at all or properly. In one part of East London, 73% of children do not speak English as their first language. And some nationalities have extremely low rates of economic activity, or very high rates of economic inactivity. So, for example, amongst people born in the Middle East and North Africa, economic inactivity rates are 40%. That is double the rate for people born in the UK. Amongst people born in South and East Asia, the economic inactivity rate is 50% higher than it is for people born in the UK. By contrast, amongst those born in Australia or New Zealand, the economic inactivity rate is only half the level amongst the UK-born population. And I'm afraid to say, when it comes to crime and offending, there are some immigrant groups where levels of criminality are very high. For example, Afghans are 20 times more likely to commit sex offenders than average. People of Congolese origin are 12 times more likely to commit violence, and Algerians are 18 times more likely to commit theft. So these figures, I will give you in just a moment, these figures illustrate that we do have a problem with integration, and that is why we need to get these numbers dramatically down until such time as we can address these issues.
Hi guys, welcome to yet another video. It's Ndagire here. So we've all been hearing what Trump has been doing with the US, but it seems like the UK is also picking it up, and they are literally saying they are also tired of immigrants. I've shared some videos before of the UK kicking out immigrants, especially like African people, but these are the same governments, like let's say the UK. I remember in the times of 2020, with COVID, the peak of COVID, they opened up their borders and they were accepting people to come in as, healthy workers, especially care workers, because the people in the UK are saying there's no jobs, but they were not able to even do, or care for their own elderly or the sick people. So it was immigrants that were granted access to the UK to come in and do that. And they were appreciated in that time, but now they've reached a time when I feel like they think that they are being replaced in the UK. And I've seen videos where, pumped people in the UK, we can't express ourselves anymore. Our country is being taken over. We can't buy homes. We can't access jobs. Everything is so hard. It's just given to the migrants, which is kind of insane, to listen to these people complain about immigrants who have actually built their countries and are still doing the hardest jobs to make their lives easy. They were also complaining about, mixing, our places are mixed a lot with other groups of people. And that just sounds racism. And when you say that, they're like, no, we are not. We're just fighting for our country. I'm like, oh, wow, interesting. So they really want, to see only white palm people in their countries. Yeah, they want immigrants out. They want you Africans, you people of color out of their countries. They do not want to see you. But the question is, are they willing to leave, other nations as well? Are they willing to do that? But yeah, guys, listen to what is going on and how the UK is changing rules and regulations to literally limit people from accessing the UK or even staying in the UK. They do not care about anyone, just themselves. Guys, come back and let me know your thoughts on it.
Politicians of the United Kingdom are instigating hatred and racism and making it look like the immigrants are not adding anything to the system, but are rather taking it from the system.
Can you give us a ballpark figure about what kind of number do you think would be acceptable?
Well, we need a substantial reduction.
What does
As I
that
said,
mean?
we had this fourfold increase. The reason that we're not doing the same thing that, again, previous Conservative governments repeatedly did, because they had loads of targets and different numbers, and actually they ended up not meeting any of them and often doing the opposite. I think that has undermined the credibility of the whole system.
So no target
so that's why
now?
instead we're taking a different approach, and we're doing this step by step. So what I can tell you is we've already been reducing the number of visas granted, and those updated figures will be produced in about a couple of weeks' time. And we are also already increasing returns. And again, we're updating those figures continually. The particular measures that we announced yesterday on the skilled worker visa, on the care worker visa, and also on settlement and on English language requirements. So just those 4 measures, they're estimated to reduce visas further by another 100,000. And then we have some other measures on top of that, including new workforce strategies in crucial key areas, including family and asylum reforms as well. So it's a whole range of things. We're just going to get on and do this step by step, and people will judge us by the results they see.
So we are here to debunk with facts and figures. Let's present facts and figures where supply and demand is going to apply. So on the 13th of May 2025, the House of Commons Library published that there are 9.3 million people in the UK who are economically inactive. 9.3 million people are economically inactive. This means that these people are not putting anything into the system financially. And the ages of these people are between 16 to 64. This is the active workforce. This is where you have the young and fresh blood. And these 9.3 million people are not working. On the other hand, the UK again made 2.2 billion on visa fees only. Aside this 2.2 billion they generated from visa fees, they also made an additional 1.7 billion from the immigration health surcharge. Immigration health surcharge means that before you access the NHS, it's not free for an immigrant. They have to pay to access the NHS, except the healthcare workers, which was brought into force in 2020 during the Boris Johnson government. So before you access the NHS, as an immigrant, a skilled worker, you have to pay for this immigration health surcharge. And then when you are issued a prescription, you have to pay for your prescription because you are not exempt. Yes, there is an exemption list, and no immigrant is on that exemption list, so you have to pay for your prescription. So immigrants are not using the NHS for free, and that is why we are here to present to you, because these are the truth that politicians do not want you to know. On top of the 1.7 billion the government made from this immigration health surcharge, they made an additional 600 million from employers who are recruiting immigrants who are on sponsorship. So if you are a sponsored, worker or a skilled worker in the UK, the employer has to pay to Home Office, and then you, the employee, you have to pay for your visa fee. And for this, the government generated £600 million from the employer. Now, after the skilled worker has stayed in the UK for continuously 5 years, they do not automatically qualify for the settlement. They have to prove themselves to be amalgamated with the British culture by demonstrating a test called the Life in the UK test, where they have to go and sit for an exam where they are asked British culture questions. And so now you are telling us that immigrants are not British enough. But before they settle, they have to write this Life in the UK test, which is a British, culture, questions and history. Apart from this, they write the IELTS. Yeah, they have to write the International English Language Testing System to prove that they can communicate in the English language. Apart from this, they have to prove that they do not have any criminal record. They've got good behavior. They also have to submit proof of finances, which is their pay slip and their bank statement, proving that they are gainfully employed and they are working. Same statistics shows that it costs about 13,000 for an average immigrant to settle in the UK. You can't gaslight us to believe that we are the cause of UK's problems. That is one thing you cannot do. But what we are trying to prevent is you instigating hatred in the hearts of the citizens of the United Kingdom for them to believe that immigrants are their problems. Now, when we spoke up and we called you out, you said, actually, legal migration is not the problem. It is illegal migration. Why don't you come forward and let us know what are your plans? At this point, the government has to just come straight and let the immigrants know What is the problem? Because clearly the immigrant isn't the problem. It is more of a demand and supply here, because the demand is too much. The people that are home, that are relying on the system, that are between the ages of 16 to 45, 9.3 million people, is more than the supply, is more than the people in the workforce that are pouring into the system. So clearly that is what needs to be fixed. And not immigration. There are a lot of problems that UK already has. UK has a lot of problems. Immigration is not one of them, because clearly statistics has presented that people have left the UK. Immigration, people have left. They've gone back to other countries and to where they came from. So clearly immigration is not one of them. So let's not make it, because this thing is instigating a lot of hatred in the heart of people. It is becoming a public concern.
Care workers will no longer be recruited from abroad under the new plans to significantly bring down net migration. Let me explain. So today, the white paper has been unveiled. You might be wondering, well, what is the white paper? Basically, the white paper sets out the government's plans to create an immigration system which promotes growth but is controlled and managed. Employers are now being told to invest in training and recruiting UK-based workers instead of relying on cheaper overseas labour. They're also raising higher skilled visa requirements. So now to get one of these visas, you have to have a higher paying salary and a degree level qualification, which would obviously exclude lower paid care workers, which some care homes rely on a lot. And when asked about this, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has said, we're going to introduce new restrictions on lower skilled workers, so new visa controls. We actually think what we should be doing is concentrating on the higher skilled migration, and we should be concentrating on training in the UK. Also, we will be closing the care worker visa for overseas recruitment. Yvette Cooper has also said that all these restrictions that they're putting into place will result in a reduction probably in the region of up to 50,000 low-skilled worker visas in the course of this year alone. This isn't a complete ban on recruiting from abroad for care workers, but it is going to make it much harder, and it's a lot more restrictive now. Obviously, overseas workers have been a critical part of filling lower-paid jobs in care working. Now, these new restrictions will make it more expensive, slower, and harder to recruit foreign staff, and in the short term, staffing shortages could get worse.
Majority of the times when people come on the internet and we try to warn especially African people, because if you listen to the man clearly, he was talking about, Congolese, Algerians, Somalis, African people, like they are the most worst behaved. Apparently in the UK, they are the ones with the less knowledge, the ones with the less skills, the ones that are not to be accepted anymore, if it makes sense in the statements he was making. They don't want to see African people in their countries. So when we come out here and we are like, guys, as African people, we need to really stay in our countries and develop our own countries, because these people who only want to use us, like I said, in the 2020 saga of COVID, they wanted African labor. They wanted like people to come in and help them out, just like they've done in history. They always want to, take our people in only when it benefits them. Okay, but in a time of today, they are feeling threatened with the low birth rates because they are not giving birth, with the integration, with the mix of cultures. They feel like they are being overwhelmed by everything, so they just want to kick out everyone and forget that it's these same people, the immigrants, that have been helping them, live a soft and easy life, And I've seen videos where some UK citizens were blaming the lack of jobs on immigrants, which I'm like, how can you blame an immigrant that came in with a skill and knowledge and say there is, inequality? How does that make sense? If you can't get a job because you don't have a skill and the other person does, why would you blame them for that? It should be you to blame yourself, So I just wish African people, I wish people could really get into like their senses and be like, you know what? I think we've done enough when it comes to helping these other nations. Let's start building our own African nations. Like literally, that's what we need today, And now they are increasing the prices of visas for students. They are changing the months and years of education, where it's literally hard for you to even finish school and, look for a job. And then when it comes to the care workers, the ones that work with the, elderly people, the ones that care for people in hospitals, in homes, because let's face it, British people do not want to do that. They feel like those jobs are for lower class, and that's why it was for immigrants. But then now they are kicking them out. I wonder who's going to be taking care of them people. But I also like that I came across videos where some people in the UK were like, you know what, these people of the government are going to make us shrink, because the money that comes from visas, from the students, international students, immigrants, when they come in, I mean, they still pay taxes. They still really improve on the economy, if not more than us, the citizens. Like, this is going to impact us financially, economically, and in every other sector. So I like that I came across those people, because they need to also start speaking up. Like, this propaganda that is pushed, that the problem is immigrants, instead of fixing things that really matter, needs to be talked about, especially from them as palmed people.
Anti-immigration rhetoric is literally ruining this country and harming our economy to levels that people can't even understand, and the Labour government are falling into the right-wing trap. The Labour government are under pressure to reduce the numbers in any way that they can, just so they can say, look, we reduced the numbers, but they're actually going after like the easiest kind of visas to go after, which are student and social care workers. Foreign students bring £40 billion to the UK economy, right? Per constituency, that's around £61 million per constituency, just for foreign students who come here. They rent out purpose-built student accommodation, so they're not really taking homes from anybody else, and obviously they buy things when they're here. And lots of university towns and cities literally rely on the student population, but they're cracking down on student visas just so they can simply get the numbers down. And now they've announced they're cracking down on social care visas, which is a massive chunk of the people who come to this country. But the issue that we have is that social care costs so much money. I think Leeds City Council, where I'm from, literally spends 60% of its budget on social care. So we have like 3 options in this country. If we want to pay people significantly more and make that market really competitive, firstly, we need to raise taxes massively to pay for this. If we want to go down the route of increasing the birth rate because we have a declining birth rate, then we would have to introduce massive, huge policies that cost tons of money to incentivize people to have children. And other countries have actually tried this with significant push and resource, and it has had barely any effect. Thirdly, we can do what we've been doing, which is obviously relying on foreign workers, which also has negative effects. It has negative effects on those countries because when we rely on foreign workers, we're stealing in many ways like skilled workers and people from other countries. Another part of this issue is that a lot of councils and the government have absolutely outsourced so much social care to private companies, and they're literally paying more for this because they make so much profit off of this. I don't understand why the government just doesn't bring this in-house, because the billions of pounds of profit that the social care sector actually makes, if we brought that in-house, we could eliminate the profit margins. When the Conservatives were in power, Nigel Farage was making jokes about students bringing dependents with them, or why are people bringing their grandmas, which is just the most ridiculous thing ever. Students bring dependents with them because when a foreign student is coming to this country, they might be doing like a master's or a PhD, right? These are mature students. They could be in their mid-20s and they're married, right? So if they're coming to this country, they're going to bring their wife with them, for example. And again, most of these people live in purpose-built student housing, so they're not actually stealing space from anyone, and they pay the NHS surcharge fee, which most of the time they never actually use the NHS when they're here because they're young and healthy, so they're actually contributing towards the NHS, not taking out of it and then adding billions of pounds to the economy. But Rishi Sunak did the same thing that the Labour government are doing now. They got rid of like dependent visas for exceptions with certain students, and the numbers of students coming here massively fell down. I think it was around 20%. So 20% of 40 billion is what, £8 billion? So £8 billion was wiped off of the economy because Rishi Sunak fell for the rhetoric of Nigel Farage saying people are bringing their grandmas here. There is no nuance for these conversations. There is no pushback. Instead of fighting against the right wing and saying the good reasons for certain types of immigration, they're just completely giving in to them in the attempt to eliminate certain types of headlines. But instead of just standing up for the right kinds of immigration, they're just completely giving in and just harming the economy, because they're not about to increase wages on social care because they just simply don't have the money. It's if we get rid of social care visas, then we have to massively increase taxes. That's the trade-off.
And the Tories are saying even if you build 1.5 million homes, British people won't get to access them because of the high levels of immigration. Is that true?
Well, I think it's astonishing that the Tories are putting that claim when they saw record levels of immigration into the UK. It is completely bogus. People that come to this country on work or student visas do not have access to the housing, and neither do people who have no right to be here. So that's rubbish. What we're doing is trying to resolve a housing crisis that has been 14 years in the making because the Tories were too busy cozying up to their mates on their backbenches as opposed to looking after the people of this country, and that's what I'm getting on with.
Can you reassure people that these small housing projects will be good quality houses and not say, low quality accommodation for asylum seekers.
Look, these houses, small and medium enterprises, they do a fantastic job. They build good, secure homes. They're also, the framework that they use is the same framework as what the big developers use. I'm tightening it up to say we want decent homes, we want warm and efficient homes into the future. But I've also said we're not compromising on nature, so we'll see more nature recovery, more parks and more green spaces.
We need foreign doctors and nurses. Well, I would put a different argument to you. I would say we should probably be ashamed of ourselves for taking over 100,000 doctors and nurses from the red list, from underdeveloped countries where undoubtedly those medical experts are needed even more than they're needed here. Amazing to think, 100,000 workers in 25 years coming from countries that need them more than us, and yet, right at the moment, we only have 9,500 people in medical training of any kind at all. It's almost as if the NHS is happier to take on agency staff from West Africa, and we've sort of lost the idea that we should be training enough of our own doctors and nurses.
International students, you are paying more, staying less, and facing stricter rules. Is the UK still worth it in 2025? Let's break it down. Your post-study work period just dropped from 2 years to 18 months. That means less time to find a job, switch visas, or gain experience. The government is proposing a 6% tuition levy on international students, which could make fees even higher. And if your university does not meet compliance standards, it could lose the license to recruit internationally. That puts your admission and future at risk. And don't forget the dependents. New English language rules now apply to your partner or children if they come with you. Employees are also being hit with a 32% increase in the immigration skills charge, making it more expensive to hire you after graduation. If you're thinking about studying in the UK, you need to know the full story. Follow me now for updates that could shape your decision before you book your flight.
In 2019, there was COVID pandemic. It lasted from a period of 2019 up until somewhere 2022. At that time, the UK was in its most vulnerable moment. The whole world saw people dying and their lives withering like the leaf on the tree. At that time, the UK opened its doors to international skilled workers who were already made from their home country, highly sophisticated in skills and in knowledge, to come and help their system, especially the healthcare sector. Most people at that time flew from various countries into the United Kingdom to help people recover from COVID. It was such a terrible moment in the lives of most people. Some people ended up losing their lives. Yes, some left their families, their loved ones, their young children, just to come and help the healthcare sector of the United Kingdom. Fast forward 3 years to 4 years down the line, the UK has forgotten. Oh yes, they are calling these people strangers. And Keir Starmer has now labeled the UK an island of strangers. He has definitely forgotten that a few years back, these strangers were heroes. They were clapping for them on the streets, giving them all the accolades, giving them freebies and gifts, and thanking them every single day. Today, these same people are called strangers in an island. Wow. A certain lady, who is affectionately called the savior of white supremacy, sat down and said, are you going to look at these people and give them British citizenship? They are over 2 million people. Can I just ask, do you not have your statistics? Do you not have auditors who are giving you the numbers of people who have been granted legal entry into the UK? So why do you wait for these people to come? Save your dear country from such a terrible pandemic. Wait for it to be their time. They haven't taken anything from you. They haven't stolen from your system. All they have done was to lay down their lives for you and for the system. But when it was just about time for them to be happy, you tell them that they are too much because they are going to be getting British citizenship. I appreciate the efforts of the past minister at that time, Mr. Boris Johnson. He saw the tireless efforts of immigrants at that time because he himself had COVID and he was admitted at the Guy's St. Thomas Hospital. Through his admission in the hospital, all the people that looked after him were immigrants. After his discharge from the hospital, he granted all healthcare workers free immigration health surcharge, decreased their visas, and introduced what we call the health and care visa. Now tell me, it's not been 5 or 6 years, and the country of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has already forgotten the wonderful efforts of these young and bright men and women who once upon a time wiped their asses when their hands couldn't reach their butt cheek. Today you have forgotten. Wow. You can increase the citizenship to 10 years or 15 years because the savior of the white supremacy has spoken and you must adhere. But there is one thing I promise you, that these people will sprinkle again. No matter what you do, what I know is that an immigrant is a bold and resilient person. And so we are going to make it again. Yes. But in the meantime, we'll keep our heads high. We'll keep our heads above the waters. And we'll see what is the outcome of the immigration white paper. But until then, I hope and pray that the decision that the Parliament of UK is going to make is not going to be a decision that they are going to regret over a lifetime.
I just hope this is like an opening, thing to African people, especially to know that the Western countries are not all glitz and glamours as we grew up seeing or being advertised to, as seeing them as the heavenly places of like the earth. We can still do it better in our own countries. And I'm not saying you should not go to the Western countries, because guys, I tell you, our ancestors built those places, so you have every right, especially as an African child, to go to them places. But why force ourselves to places we are not, wanted and accepted and welcomed? Like, that should really sit in our heads. Like, let's do better for our own countries, and also like push this word out to these puppet leaders of ours that we have in the continent that really make us look bad every freaking day. Because all of this could be solved if we had good governance. If that makes sense. Like, that is the only issue we have in Africa. If that is fixed, everything else will start to work in its right way form. But yeah, guys, you've heard what people had to say. The UK does not want to see black people there. They do not want to see other people in their country. Like, you guys are taking over their country. You're literally wiping them out. Yeah, it's not funny, but yeah, that's how they feel wiped out, literally. Insane. Guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm always posting. I'll see you in another video. Bye.